Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my immense pleasure and honor to welcome you to the Korea, China, Japan Local Government Conference on Regional Innovation Toward Carbon Neutral Society. My name is Ri-won Yang, a senior researcher at the Green Technology Center, Korea. Prior to entering, I would like to inform you this event is held in compliance with the COVID-19 protocols. This international conference is being broadcasted globally via YouTube. So those who cannot join us here in the field due to COVID-19 can still join us through this StepTube channel on YouTube. Any audience can participate in this conference via YouTube chat box. I hope all the participants from both online and offline can take away various messages from this conference for the regional innovation toward a carbon neutral society. We have a quite number of prestigious speakers for the opening session. So without further ado, and to officially announce the opening of this event, I would like to first invite Mr. Young-Ju Ko, the president of Daejeon Institute of Science and Technology for Enterprise and People, to give us an inaugural address for this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President Young-Ju Ko.
Opening Korea, China, Japan Local Government Conference on Regional Innovation and Science Technology Cooperation toward Carbon Neutral Society. First of all, I'd like to thank Ho Tae-jung, the mayor of Daejeon Metropolitan City, Ban Ki-moon, chairperson of National Council on Climate and Air Quality in Korea, Yong Hong-taek, the first Vice Minister in Ministry of Science and ICT, Lee In-hwan, Director of National Research Council of Science Technology, and Park Sang-jin, President of Korea Institute of Machinery and Materials, and all of distinguished speakers for your participation and contribution to this event. It's my privilege and pleasure to welcome all of you here on and offline today. We are delighted to have you with us to participate and share in this significant conference. To overcome the global climate crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic, many countries around the world are doing their best to declare carbon neutrality and secure new innovation growth. Visioned for a global science city and 2022 host city of the General Assembly of the UCLG, the World Organization of United States and Local Government, which is the largest international organization of local and regional government, Daejeon pursues to establish a city and region-based carbon neutral innovation model and future cooperation with Shandong Province in China and Tsukuba City in Japan. The role of local government and citizen participation are getting more important for carbon net zero in 2050. We could share not only national level actions in China, Japan, and Korea, but also a strategic plan of local governments. I believe that this conference could be fruitful for sharing experiences and coming up with an agenda for future cooperation in various ways among Tsukuba, Shandong, and Daejeon. As a Daejeon City-funded think tank organization, this step will continuously try to our best to support for future international cooperation towards carbon neutral city. I wish you a pleasant and rewarding time of conference. Thank you very much for indeed.
Thank you, President Go, for the wonderful inaugural address. Now for the welcoming remarks, I would like to invite Mr. Tae-jung-ho, the Mayor of Daejeon Metropolitan City. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor Tae-jung-ho.
원장님 키가 저보다 좀 큰 것 같습니다. 여러분 반갑습니다. 무엇보다 중요한 국제 이슈인 탄소 중립을 주제로 한중일 지방정부 컨퍼런스를 개최하게 돼서 매우 뜻깊게 생각하고, 먼저 오프라인으로 함께 해주시며 행사를 빛내주신 국가기후환경위원회 반기문 위원장님을 비롯한 모든 분들께 진심으로 감사 인사를 드립니다.
Nice to meet you all. On the theme of carbon neutrality, which is the most important international issue, I am very pleased to hold a conference of local governments in Korea and China and Japan. First of all, I sincerely thank everyone, including Ban Ki-moon, Chairman of the National Climate and Environment Association, also guests who are joining us online and offline to celebrate the event.
기후변화에 대한 세계적인 대응에 맞춰 우리나라 정부는 2050 탄소 중립 계획을 지난해 10월에 천명을 하였고, 우리 시도 금년 1월 2050 탄소 중립을 골자로 하는 삶이 건강한 산소 도시 대전을 발표한 바가 있습니다.
In line with this global response, the Korean government announced the 2050 carbon neutrality plan in October last year, and in January this year, our city announced this vision of a healthy life oxygen city Daejeon with 2050 carbon neutrality as the main focus.
구체적으로 올해부터 탄소 중립 2050 탄소 배출량 제로화를 선언하고, 크게 물, 수송, 에너지, 시민 협력 분야의 온실가스를 감축을 추진하며 2050까지 생활권 도시숲 1000개를 조성하는 기후 변화에 대응해 나갈 것입니다.
Specifically from this year, the government declared zero net carbon emission in 2050 to greatly reduce greenhouse gases in water, transportation, energy, and civil cooperation, and to take the lead in responding to climate change by creating 1,000 urban forests by 2050.
한편 오늘 한국 측 발제를 해주실 국가기후위원 정래건 전 기후환경변화 대사님을 비롯한 많은 전문가 여러분들의 발표 내용에 대해서도 많은 기대를 갖고 있습니다.
I have great expectation, including the former ambassador to climate change, Jung Rae-kwon of the National Climate and Environment Committee, who will present for Korea today.
이번 국제 컨퍼런스는 우리 대전이 지구 환경 보존에 앞장서는 글로벌 도시로서의 도약하는 계기가 될 거로 믿으며, 세계 각국 지방 정부와 다방면으로 협력을 계속해 나갈 계획입니다.
I hope that this international conference will serve as an opportunity for Daejeon to become a global city that takes the lead in preserving the global environment, and we will continue to cooperate in various ways with the local governments around the world.
다시 한번 오늘 이 자리에 함께해 주시고 준비해 주신 모든 분들께 감사 인사를 드리면서 인사 마치겠습니다.
Once
감사합니다.
again, thank you to everyone who attended today's conference. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mayor Dae Jung-ho, for your welcoming remarks. The next congratulatory address is from Mr. Ki Moon-pan, Chairperson of National Council on Climate and Equality, who could not join us here in Daejeon, but who sent us a video message. Let's take a look at the video.
Honorable Mayor of Daejeon, Ho Tae-jung, Honorable Chairperson of the National Research Council of Science and Technology and Minister Designate of Science and ICT Lim Hae-suk, First Vice Minister of Science and ICT Yong Hong-taek, President of the Daejeon Institute of Science and Technology for Enterprise and People, DISTEP Go Yong-ju, President of the Korea Institute of Machinery and Materials Park Sang-jin, dear all participants here today and joining us online. Last year, people in Northeast Asia were struck by a series of extreme weather events, including the longest monsoon on record, typhoons, heat waves, and cold snaps, all of which were clear signs of the climate crisis. Worse yet, last year was hit by a double whammy of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has upended our daily lives, posing an existential threat to humanity's very survival. It is widely known that what underlies COVID-19 is primarily environmental degradation caused by climate change. The climate crisis and pandemics are the transboundary issues that share the underlying causes. Openness and solidarity are desperately called for in this time when we must pool all our resources and motivation to solve these pressing global issues. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this year particularly holds a significance in that it is the year that marks the beginning of the new climate regime in accordance with the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. During my tenure as Secretary General of the United Nations, I had persistently persuaded world leaders, including former US President Barack Obama, President Xi Jinping of China, and Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi, to engage them in climate negotiations. I still vividly remember the moment when President Xi and President Obama deposited their instrument of ratification on September 3, 2016, just before the G20 summit held in Hangzhou, China. Year 2020 is when many countries have started the journey towards carbon neutrality. It has been truly encouraging to see countries make pledges one after another, creating strong momentum for a net zero economy. Countries in Asia are taking the lead in this journey towards carbon neutrality. China made a pledge at the UN General Assembly in September 2020 to the international community to become a carbon neutral economy by 2060. Soon after, Korea and Japan announced their 2050 net zero targets. To elaborate further, President Moon Jae-in of Korea proposed the 2050 net zero vision with three main pillars: achieving carbon neutrality in all areas of industry, economy, and society, creating a low-carbon industry ecosystem, and pursuing a just transition to ensure no one is left behind. On April 1st, the Ministry of Science and ICT of Korea laid out the Strategy for Technology Innovation for Carbon Neutrality, where it specified the goals and strategies to secure the 10 key technologies for carbon neutrality. Meanwhile, the government of China has pushed forward policies to make significant improvements in air quality as part of its 13th five-year plan for environmental protection, particularly through the optimization of the energy mix and industrial structure. Moving forward, it has presented the 3 steps in its roadmap for meeting its 2060 net zero target and called for a greater role of innovation and science and technology. To achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, the government of Japan has been doubling its efforts for green innovation and technological development while taking note of its domestic industries and demographic structure. In particular, it has made clear that responding to climate change presents the opportunity for future growth, and green growth strategy creates a virtuous cycle of economic growth and environmental protection. Considering the different economic sizes and industrial structures of all 3 nations, the pledges made by Korea, China, and Japan to reach carbon neutrality are truly heartening. Taking this opportunity, I'd like to applaud the admiring leadership and decisiveness of President Moon Jae-in, President Xi Jinping, and Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it was once perceived that there were trade-offs between economic development and environmental protection. But today, we live in an era where response to climate change serves as a new strategy for economic development. In this light, I find it timely and relevant that the first ever discussion forum for high-level experts representing the three countries' central and municipal governments is hosted by the Daejeon Metropolitan City and DSTEP. I look forward to this conference serving as a platform for communication that enhances tripartite cooperation and regional innovation and reaffirms the need for stronger multilateralism to not only overcome the COVID-19 pandemic, but also respond to the climate crisis. Thank you. 谢谢. 아리가또 고자이마스. 감사합니다.
For your inspiring words. I think he has resumed very well, very intelligently, the rationale for this conference. We will move on to our next special video message from the First Vice Minister, Hong Taek-yung, from the Ministry of Science and ICT of the Republic of Korea. Let's take a look at the video.
Distinguished guests, I am Yong Hong Taek, Vice Minister of Ministry of Science and ICT. I would like to congratulate you on hosting of international conference on Korea, China, Japan, scientific and technological cooperation for carbon neutrality and regional innovation. I would also like to extend my gratitude to distinguished guests here today, as well as many experts from Korea, China, and Japan for participating in the conference. Currently, extreme weather events and natural disasters are becoming more frequent in many parts of the world, as they are caused by dramatic changes in climate due to global warming. Global warming can be attributed to an increased concentration of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide. Against this backdrop, many countries around the world are making a lot of effort to respond to climate changes by declaring to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and actively implementing policies and investing in low-carbon industrial strategies. To this end, the Korean government announced the 2050 carbon neutral strategy in December last year. In March this year, the government established the technology innovation strategies for carbon neutrality, which consist of developing 10 key technologies that can contribute to reaching net zero carbon emissions and facilitating commercialization emerging technology. This April, the Act on Promoting the Development of Technologies for Responding to Climate Change has been enacted in order to establish the legal basis for supporting the development of technologies and respond to climate change. I am aware that local government of Korea came together July last year to launch the Local Government Association for Carbon Neutrality. I heard that Daejeon Metropolitan City also joined the association, and various projects have been carried out for reaching net zero carbon emissions, such as creating urban forest. Based on such effort, we will be able to achieve carbon neutrality and enjoy safe and happy life by addressing the risk of climate change. Once again, I would like to congratulate the hosting of international conference between Korea, China, and Japan. I hope the local governments of the three countries can successfully share carbon neutral strategies and discuss cooperative agendas at today's conference. Thank you.
Next guest of honor is Mr. In-Hwan Lee, the Director General of Policy Office of the National Research Council of Science and Technology. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Director General Lee.
Dear colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, I'm Lee In-Hwan, Director General of the Policy Office in the National Research Council of Science and Technology, NST. On behalf of NST, I'd like to offer my congratulations regarding the opening of the International Conference for Korea, China, and Japan SNT cooperations and regional innovations for carbon neutrality. And I'd like to thank Chairperson Ban Ki-moon of the National Council on Climate and Air Quality, NCCA, and Mayor Ho Tae-jung of the City of Daejeon, and the President Go Young-ju on the Daejeon Institute of Science and Technology for Enterprise and People, DSTEP, and their members. Thank you for your efforts. We made this conference a great success. In our everyday lives, it can be difficult to notice when the temperature outside changes by 1.5 degrees Celsius. But when our body temperature rises by 1.5 degrees, we feel it. And these days, it means you need to go to get tested for COVID-19. If our body temperature increases by just a few degrees, our livers can be quite in danger. The earth is our bodies and our lives. It is very sensitive to temperature. If the temperature rises by just 1.5 degrees, more than 70% of all coral reefs will die. If the temperature is by 2 degrees, the fatality level will be 100%. It is the start of the extinction of the species. We need to listen to our body, and we need to feel how our body is suffering right now. It is not just the coral that is a fear. A higher temperature will disrupt the natural order of every ecosystem. Humans will not be spared the effort of such significant changes. The effort for being carbon neutral is for us to survive today, and it also for all of us to live tomorrow with our children. Global efforts are being made to solve this problem. NST and the research institutes in Korea are actively working on various R&D programs to contribute to reaching carbon neutrality, such as smart energy, renewable energy, energy storage, energy efficiency improvement, and greenhouse gas reduction technologies. In order to facilitate convergence between technologies and promote cooperation, the NST is preparing to launch a carbon neutral committee under the chairperson's leadership. Furthermore, if our research institutes, DSTEP, Daejeon Metropolitan City, NCCA, Korea, China, and Japan work together, I believe that the limit, the global temperature increase to within 1.5 degrees Celsius will be achievable. In today's conference, I hope that a solid consensus and the practical process between Korea, China, and Japan for carbon neutral science and technology cooperation will be formed and effective measures discussed in depth. The NST will actively support and cooperate with the research institute to realize carbon neutrality. I wish you all the best in the future, and thank you.
Thank you, Director General In-hwan Lee, for the captivating message. Our final congratulatory address will be given by Mr. Sang-jin Park, the President of Korea Institute of Machinery and Materials. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President Sang-jin Park.
예, 안녕하십니까. 한국기계연구원 원장 박상진입니다.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am the President Sang-jin Park from Korea Institute of Machinery and Materials.
한중일 세 나라의 기후변화 및 정책 전문가가 머리를 맞대고 미래를 위한 새로운 논의를 시작하는 뜻깊은 자리를 우리 연구원에서 개최하게 되어 매우 기쁘게 생각하며 참석하신 모든 분들을 환영합니다.
I am very pleased we are holding a meaningful meeting at our institute. Experts on climate change and policy in Korea, China, and Japan will gather their thoughts together to start a new discussion for the future.
오늘 행사가 열릴 수 있도록 뜻을 모아주신 허태정 대전시장님과 고영주 원장님을 비롯한 대전시 관계자 여러분께 감사드립니다.
Also, I want to express my sincere gratitude to Daejeon Metropolitan City Mayor Ha Tae-jung and also the Chief Go Young-jun, along with officials from the city.
아울러 오늘 탄소중립 의제와 혁신 전략에 대해 기조 발표를 해주실 한중일의 전문가분들께도 깊이 감사드립니다.
And today on the carbon neutral agenda and innovation strategy, experts in Korea, China, and Japan who will give keynote presentation, I also want to express my gratitude as well.
탄소중립은 4차 산업혁명에 이어 우리 시대를 관통하는 새로운 화두가 되었습니다.
Carbon neutrality, followed by the fourth industrial revolution, became a new topic that runs through our time.
세계 각국이 앞다투어 탄소중립 달성을 선언하고 글로벌 기업들도 이 흐름에 동참하면서 신재생 에너지, 그린 모빌리티, 저탄소 산업 등 다양한 분야에서 다양한 정책들이 제시되고 있습니다.
Countries around the world are scrambling to declare carbon neutrality. Global companies are joining the trend as well. Renewable energy, green mobility, low carbon industries, etc. The policy to achieve carbon neutrality in each sector is to create a new policy presented variously.
우리 연구원도 탄소 배출량을 획기적으로 줄일 수 있는 기계기술의 혁신에 앞장서고 있습니다.
Our institute also has the ability to drastically reduce carbon emission to take the lead in innovation in mechanical technology.
이러한 기술 혁신과 더불어 제조업 비중이 높은 한국의 경우 비슷한 상황인 중국, 일본을 비롯한 제조 강국들과 제조업 기반의 탄소 중립 전략을 공유하고 연대하는 노력이 매우 중요합니다.
In addition to technological innovation, Korea has a high proportion of manufacturing. Similar situation with the manufacturing powers such as China and Japan. Sharing and solidifying a manufacturing-based carbon neutral strategy effort is very important.
오늘 이 컨퍼런스는 탄소 중립 달성을 위해 시작된 국가 간 협력에서 나아가 지방 정부 차원의 전략을 확인하고 더 구체적이고 체계적인 협력 방안을 모색하는 좋은 기회가 될 것입니다.
Today's conference is moving forward from cooperation between countries that began to achieve carbon neutrality and identify local government strategies seeking more significant and systemic ways of cooperation.
이곳 대전은 대한민국을 대표하는 과학 도시로서 탄소 감축 관련 기술의 연구 개발은 물론 테스트베드 역할을 할 수 있는 도시입니다.
Daejeon is the representative science city of Korea. It can conduct research and development of carbon reduction technologies and also can act as a test bed.
한국기계연구원도 한국을 대표하는 기계기술 연구기관으로서 2050년 탄소 중립 달성을 위해 최선을 다하겠습니다.
Our institute will also be able to move forward as Korea's leading mechanical technology research institute to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050.
코로나19 백신이 글로벌 공공재라는 인식을 얻었듯이 탄소 중립 기술도 인류를 위한 공공재로 여겨져 국제적인 과학기술 협력이 더욱 공고해지기를 기대합니다.
Just as the COVID-19 vaccine has been recognized as a global public good, carbon neutral technology is also can consider as a public goods technology for humanity. I hope that international scientific and technological cooperation will become more solid.
끝으로 준비해 쓰신 관계자 여러분께 감사드립니다. 고맙습니다.
Lastly, I would like to thank those who participated for the conference preparation. Thank you.
Thank you, President Park, for the memorable messages and also for your full support by providing the place to hold this conference. Another special guest sent us a surprise written congratulatory message this morning. The message is from Sang-min Lee, the member of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea. I would like to share this message by reading it on his behalf. 축전.
Congratulatory message.
한중일 탄소 중립 과학기술 국제 컨퍼런스 개최를 진심으로 축하드립니다.
I truly congratulate the Korea, China, and Japan local government conference.
오늘 국제 컨퍼런스를 준비해 주신 관계자 여러분들께 감사의 인사를 드리며 세계 각국 정부와 글로벌 기업들이 탄소 중립 실현을 위한 핵융합 에너지 시대에 발돋움하는 자리가 되기를 바랍니다.
I would like to thank those who participated for the conference preparation. Hope this event become a foundation for the global cooperation and governments to achieve the carbon neutrality.
이 자리를 통해 우수한 기술력을 바탕으로 탄소 중립을 이루는데 앞장설 수 있기를 기대하겠습니다.
I wish this conference can set excellent technology to lead the carbon neutrality.
이 자리에 참석하신 모든 분들의 행복과 건승을 기원합니다. 감사합니다. 2021년 4월 23일 국회의원 이상민.
I wish all the happiness and good luck for everyone who attended today's conference. April 23rd, 2021, member of National Assembly, Lee Sang-min.
Okay, so before closing our opening session, I would like to take a moment to introduce our honored guests who took their time from their busy schedule to attend this conference. Please welcome Mr. Kyung-chul Kim, President of Daejeon Express Transit Corporation. Also, please welcome Mr. Hyung-jong Lee, International Relations Ambassador of the Daejeon Metropolitan City. Last but not least, please welcome Mr. Junyup Song, the Vice President of Korea Institute of Machinery and Materials. I think he's not in the hall now, so thank you anyway. I would like to thank all the honored guests for their inspiring speeches and remarks. Please give another big round of applause for everyone. Thank you. So before moving on to the next session, we will take a short break for 5 minutes to rearrange the podium. Thank you for your attention. Welcome back, everyone. I will briefly run down today's program. We have 3 sessions. The first session is focusing on the carbon neutrality and innovation strategy of 3 countries, Korea, China, and Japan. The second session will provide insight on how local governments are preparing and implementing the carbon neutrality agenda at the local level. The final session will be a panel discussion where all 7 presenters will have a lively discussion. Please note that the presenters are invited online and offline simultaneously and is now being live streamed via YouTube. Now, I would like to open our first session by inviting our first presenter, Mr. Ne Kwon-jung, the council member of National Council on Climate and Air Quality and former climate ambassador. He will give us a presentation on the policy innovations for global carbon neutrality. Please welcome him with a big applause.
Good morning. Yeah. Okay. It is my great pleasure to make a short presentation this morning, especially after the very impressive congratulatory remarks from former Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, about the importance of carbon neutrality. I am working as a member of the National Council on Climate and Air Quality, and I was a climate change ambassador for Korea, and I was also working for UN ESCAP as a director for Environment Development Division, and I have been pioneering the idea of green growth from 2005, and I have worked for 10 years to disseminate the idea of virtuous cycle between environment and economy, which was mentioned by Mr. Ban Ki-moon this morning in his congratulatory remark. So it is my great honor and pleasure, especially after the yesterday's special climate summit hosted by the United States, President Mr. Biden. And we heard more than 27 head of states yesterday making new special commitments and pledges for their national contribution for carbon neutrality. It is very heartening to see that finally all the global leaders are joining their forces to work together for respond to the climate crisis. Today, my presentation will focus on what is the fundamental reason why we are facing climate change today. I don't think I want to emphasize that climate change is not just a matter of rising temperature. Many people think that this is a kind of a weather event or atmospheric issues. But in fact, we have to understand why the climate change is happening. From my own interpretation, the fundamental reason why climate change is happening is because the economic system, in other words, the market economy, where our economy and society is operating, is not paying the right price for carbon. We are emitting CO2 without paying the price of climate change because the market we are operating is not reflecting and internalizing the cost of carbon emission. This is why we have been emitting CO2 without any kind of restriction and limit. This has been the basic reason. So I was saying that this is a sign of failure of a conventional knowledge, economic and social system. So climate change is just one of the symptoms of the failure of conventional economic system. In other words, climate change is not the only problem. We are having COVID-19, which is another very serious problem. Why I am speaking with my mask, facial mask now. So COVID-19 is also one of the symptoms or challenges we are facing because of the failure of the conventional economic system that's not paying the price for ecological prices we are exploiting. So we have to understand that this is not just a matter of rising temperature. It's a failure of conventional knowledge, economic and social system. Here, what I mean by knowledge, the conventional knowledge, which means, in other words, is a market economy, and another knowledge is, as Mr. Ban Ki-moon mentioned just moments earlier, that we have been believing that paying the price for climate change and the investing in environment and the investing in climate action is a cost and a burden, and it will damage our economic growth. That was a knowledge we have been believing. The former US President Trump was a classical example who showed that, who has a strong conviction, investing in climate change will damage American economy. This is why President Trump decided to withdraw from Paris Agreement. So this is a conventional knowledge. What I mean by conventional knowledge. But many people are now emphasizing and realizing that investing in climate change is not just a burden and cost or damaging our economy. Many people have been saying finally they are saying that climate change can be an opportunity, new opportunity for new economic growth and job creation. In fact, that was the idea I was proposing since 2005. That was the essence of the idea of green economic growth, which I was proposing since 2005. So in the face of those failure of conventional knowledge, economic and social system, many new paradigm has been proposed. One of the example is a sustainable development. Sustainable development has been proposed in 1992 in Rio Earth Summit. At that time, I attended myself, and the sustainable development idea has been proposed finally. The basic idea was that we cannot just pursue economic development. We have to balance economic development with environmental protection as in social development as well. So the three pillars has to be in balance and harmonized. That was the idea of sustainable development. And then later, in 2005, when I was in UNESCO, I proposed the idea of green economic growth, which is the idea of investing in green, which means the climate can be a driver of clean economic growth. And then later, in 2010, UNEP proposed green economy. And in 2015, we have been seeing that a new report is coming up. New climate economy report is coming up by a new foundation. So, and this new climate economy report has been saying that climate change, in fact, is not just a burden and cost, but it's going to be a new opportunity for economic growth. So the idea, my idea that I have been emphasizing since 2005, finally has been echoed by world global economists around the world, and they are coming up with this kind of report. And then 2010, when there was a financial crisis in 2008, and then Green New Deal idea came up with the British Prime Minister Gordon Brown. So Green New Deal came up in 2010. At that time, Green New Deal was proposed not as a strong action to address climate change, but rather upside down, which means it was proposed to save the global economy, which has been suffering from financial crisis in 2008. So in order to save the global economy, Prime Minister of UK, Gordon Brown, proposed to invest in climate change, to save the global economy, not just to protect the climate change. So this was the origin of global Green New Deal. And then later, 9 years later, 2 years ago, European Union proposed a Green Deal as a new approach for climate change. And then later, Net Zero 2050 idea came up with the IPCC report in 2018. And then later, last year actually, European Union, USA, Korea, China, Japan, these countries are coming up with a new commitment for net zero by 2050. And then another new paradigm is proposed, is carbon neutrality. Carbon neutrality is a topic of our conference today. Then the question is, carbon neutrality, of course, it sounds nice and it is a great vision and we have to pursue it. But the question is, do we know how we can achieve it or whether it is really feasible? This is the big questions we have to address. And actually, this is why we are having this conference, to pool our wisdom, to work together, to realize the vision of carbon neutrality. Then, before I just focus on carbon neutrality as a specific agenda item, I think we have to look at the carbon neutrality from the broader perspective of sustainable development. Because for me, carbon neutrality is just one of the implementing strategy of sustainable development. Sustainable development is our ultimate goal. The balancing economy, environment, and society. So sustainable development is an overarching goal. Carbon neutrality is one of the implementing strategy to harmonize and balance the three pillars. So I would like to focus on what has been done on sustainable development. As I said earlier, the sustainable development means we have to shift away from economic growth first towards balancing economic prosperity, social development, and environmental protection. And the issue is, even though we have adopted in 2015, we SDG. I didn't mention it here, but SDG, as many of you know, Sustainable Development Goal, is a global goal to be achieved until 2030. It was unanimously adopted in United Nations in 2015 as a global goal. But this global goal, Sustainable Development Goal, has been adopted by UN, but still, we do not know how we can achieve the sustainable development. We know that we have to balance economy, society, and environment, but we actually don't know how we can balance it, or is it really possible, and we don't know about it. And so in order to find a solution, then we have to find a fundamental dynamics between economy, society, and environment pillar. There are three pillars. And the three pillars has to be in harmony and in balanced pursuit. And so I have to show you how we can balance those three pillars. The current economic paradigm of the market economy is a vicious cycle. We are in a bad cycle where we are trying to exploit human capital and natural capital by paying minimum wage. So human capital means labor. Natural capital means energy. And we are paying the least price for energy and the least minimum wage for human capital and labor. So this is, we are exploiting human and natural capital. Actually, by exploiting human and natural capital, our economy is suffering, society is suffering, and our environment is suffering. We have to move towards a new paradigm, new virtuous cycle, which is a good cycle, where investing in human capital and natural capital. So we have to invest and to pay higher price for our energy, and we have to pay a higher wage for our labor, which is, in other words, is investing. So if we invest in human capital, labor productivity will go up. If we pay a higher price for energy, then our resource efficiency will go up. And this will stimulate higher economic growth. So this is going to be a good cycle, the virtuous cycle, which was mentioned by Mr. Ban Ki-moon in his remarks. So if we can pursue investing in human capital, I call it inclusive growth. And investing in natural capital is ecological growth, which is green growth. In fact, the catchphrase of World Bank is inclusive and green growth. So it was the UNESCOP that initiated green growth first. Later, even World Bank adopted inclusive and green growth as a strategy for sustainable development. But the essence of moving from bad cycle to good cycle is that we have to shift away from short-termism to long-termism. Climate change and social development or COVID-19, these are the issues for long-term goals. But the current economic paradigm of market economy is that we have to maximize our GDP, short-term production. So we are always focusing on short-term quantity maximization of GDP at the expense of human and natural capital. This is the problem of the current situation. So we have to move from short-termism towards a long-termism, which is new paradigm, long-term quality of GDP, not quantity of GDP, by investing in human and natural capital. This is sustainable development. So what I'm saying is that it's not just a matter of money and technology. Many people think that it's just a matter of money and technology, but I want to emphasize that it is actually a matter of policy. Without proper policy, the money and technology will not flow for our carbon neutrality. Since the time is running out, I will go a little faster. What are the elements of transformation? These are the elements of transformation, which I mean by that is that industrial revolution powered by coal, oil, electricity, internet happened automatically by market and technology. But carbon neutrality revolution will not happen automatically. It has to be pushed by the government leadership. Without government leadership, I don't think we can make such a transformation. And what are the drivers? I think this is a very important point. The government has to jumpstart system change, investing in long-term goals. The market cannot invest in long-term goals. Political leadership, commitment critical, and the support from business and people also necessary. But in order to make this kind of commitment happen, I think the conviction that investing in long-term goal, sustainable development goal, will deliver higher economic growth in the long run. I think this kind of conviction is necessary. Without such a conviction, I think it is impossible to shift away from short-term to long-term investment. So finally, I've been proposing as a strategy for carbon neutrality, I've been proposing these 5 tracks. Number 1, we have to shift away from quantity to quality of growth. Second, align invisible structure, which is fiscal policy, regulation, and redesign our infrastructure, urban planning, promote green business, and mainstreaming low carbon development into our national development strategy. These are the 5 tracks for transformation towards a carbon neutrality. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee Kwon-jung. Our next presenter will be Mr. Chu Hua-ching, Director General of National Center for Climate Change Strategy and International Cooperation of the Ministry of Ecology and Environment, presenting China's climate policies and actions. Please welcome Mr. Chu Hua-ching with a big applause.
谢谢主持人，特别高兴有机会参加中日韩迈向碳中和的区域创新与科技合作会。我是徐华清，来自中国国家应对气候变化。
Small glitch in connecting.
Okay, I see.
Okay, good, great.
我是来自中国国家应对气候变化战略研究和国际合作中心的徐华清。OK， 很高兴有机会参加中日韩迈向碳中和区域创新与科技合作会。我是来自中国国家应对气候变化战略研究和国际合作中心。Yes, okay. It's my pleasure have this opportunity to make a speech on related to the carbon neutral on China. And just I would like to enhance my President Xi Jinping in Paris conference, talking climate change is the shared mission for mankind. For China, it's not only for others, it's myself. So it's required for China for sustainable development is not what others want us to do, but we do it ourselves. Next. Was regarding to targets such as greenhouse gas emission reductions under the conditions that the economic structure and the technical conditions have not been significantly improved. This target means will compress the space of economic growth. Next. Yeah. My President Xi Jinping last year announced a very significant target for China. He pointed out China will increase the NDCs and adopt strengthening policy and measures and to reach the peak of carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and strive to achieve carbon neutral before 2060. So pay attention to before. It's a very strong national strategy and policy guidance. We want to choose these two targets before 2030 and before 2060. Next. And with regard to the carbon peak and carbon neutrals, last year in the Central Economic Work Conference made a clear requirement for carbon peakings and carbon neutral, put it at 8 major tasks for this year. And this conference also required we want to support regionals where conditions to reach the peak first. So it's a very clear information for the regional government. We ask and support where conditions permitted to reach peak first. And this conference also pointed out we want to promote the co-consumptions to peak as soon as possible. It's also very important policies and actions regarding to achieve the carbon peak. Next, please. And to support or to coordinate related to the carbon peak and air pollution reductions is also very clear. We want to continue to fight the through the battle of pollution preventing and control and realize the systemic effect of pollution reductions and carbon reductions is also very important. And another very important target is related to the putting praying for national economy and social development and the outline of the long-term goals for 2035. And we have a clear target related to reduce energy consumption and carbon dioxide emissions per unit of GDP. And we want to implement a system for the carbon intensity control as the main instrument and total carbon emissions control as a supplemental to support regional where conditions permit and to support key industries and key enterprise to take the lead in reduce carbon emissions to reaching the peak of carbon emissions. Next. And also, this document point out we want to promote clean, low carbon, safe, and efficient use of energy, and to deepen the low carbon transformations of industries, construction, and transportations. And we also to strengthen the observation and assessment of impact of global warming on China vulnerable regions, and improve the stability of urban and rural constructions, agricultural productions, and infrastructure to adopt climate change. Next. And with regard to the global governance, China has very clear positions. We want to adhere to the principle of equality, common but differentiated responsibility, and respective capabilities. And the target and also very clear. We want to constructive participate in and lead international cooperation on climate change, and implement of the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. And also we actively carry out South-South cooperation on climate change. Next. And earlier this year, a very important meetings held last month. The Central Financial Community emphasized the inclusion of carbon peaking and carbon neutral in the overall layout of ecological civilization constructions. It's a very clear national strategies. Put the carbon peak and carbon neutral in the overall layout of ecological civilization constructions. And President Xi pointed out, achieve carbon peakings and carbon neutral is a broad and profound economic and social systemic changes. And it's also ask everything and to make more efforts and to achieve before 2030 the peaking target, and before 2060 carbon neutral. Next. And this conference also point out very clear we needed to deal with some key issues and key relations and key important challenges and opportunities. Just Ambassador Zhong said, how to deal with climate change, with economic and social development, and how to promote the high quality development and high quality environment protections. Next, please. And also we see achieving carbon peak and carbon neutral is a salt bet and a big test of our party's stability to governance control. So it's very clear it is necessary to strengthen the central and unified leadership of the Central Committee of CPC and improve the supervising assessment mechanism. And also ask all leaders should strengthen the learning of carbon emissions related technologies and enhancing their ability to grasp green and low carbon development. Next. And also point out some key issues related to the technology and innovations. You can see we want to strengthen the innovation of science, technology, and system, and form an effective incentive and restraint mechanism. And also we to promote major breakthroughs in green and low carbon technologies and speed up the deployment of research on low carbon technologies. And also we strengthen international cooperation and changes in addressing climate change and effective coordinating domestic and international energy resources, and promote the formulation of international rules and standards, and build our green scale loaders. So it's very clear how to achieve our peak target, our carbon neutral. We should emphasize and science and technology innovations, and emphasize our system reform, and emphasize to effectively coordinate domestic and international energy resources. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director General Xu Haoqing, for your presentation. I think it was very informative presentation, which gave us an overview of the China's policies and actions that they are taking at national level. Next, our next presenter is Kenji Asakawa, Program Manager at the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. He will give us a presentation on how the central government of Japan supports local action plans. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kenji Asakawa. I belong to the Institute for Global Environment Strategies, which is a governmental think tank under the Ministry of Environment, Japan. And I'm working as a program manager and policy researcher. It's great honor to speak about how Japanese government supports local government towards zero carbon city today. Prime Minister Suga declared that Japan will aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050 in his policy speech of the last year. He emphasized a vicious cycle of the economy and the environment as a pillar of our growth strategy in the context of a green society. In this speech, the central government confirmed that global environment measures were no longer a constraint on the economy, but they are the key to transforming the social economy, encourage investment, increasing productivity, and creating major shift in industrial structure and strong growth. First of all, the government is taking a bold step forward in environment investment. So there are 6 major points of this strategy. The first one is promoting technology innovation. The government of Japan will create a 2 trillion fund of fund and provide tax credit of up to 10% for green investment to accelerate the development and commercialization of cutting-edge technologies. The second one, promoting renewable energy policy. The government of Japan will broadly expand our renewable energy resources, such as hydrogen and offshore wind, and increase our transmission lines. For nuclear energy, the government will put safety first in our nuclear policy and establish stable energy supply. The third one, action plan for green growth strategy. The government of Japan established the action plan towards 2050 and set high targets for 14 industries that are expected to grow through technological innovation. Fourth one is disclosure of information on green growth. Monitoring is always important so that we can know how well we are achieving our objectives. For appropriate monitoring, the government will create appropriate indicators to monitor the interrelationship between the environment and the economy and collect statistical data on them. Fifth one is transition to decarbonized lifestyles. The Ministry of Environment Japan has taken initiative to encourage people to take more eco-friendly actions, such as switching to more energy efficiency products, using services, and choosing lifestyles that contribute to a decarbonized society. The last one is the Zero Carbon City Initiative. In order to achieve zero carbon for Japan as a whole, it's one of the best ways to get the local governments to aim for zero carbon. The Ministry of Environment Japan has taken initiative to encourage top-down commitments of the mayors to become zero carbon city by 2050. So far, 368 local governments declared zero carbon city by 2050. That covers 110 million people, almost 90% of total population in Japan. But it is too difficult for local governments to formulate and implement their climate action plans by only themselves, so that the central government's support is very crucial to them. Actually, in many cases, local government's climate actions are heavily supported by central government, and furthermore, they are sometimes dependent totally on the central government's initiative. That is why it's very important to know the central government's support to the local governments for proper and better understanding of the local climate actions. Today, I'm going to talk about my presentation on how the central government of Japan supports local governments to formulate and implement their local action plans. The local action plan is legally required for local governments to formulate and implement by the Act on Promotion of Global Warming Countermeasures. In accordance with that act, the central government formulates a government-wide plan called the Global Warming Prevention Plan, and local governments formulate action plans based on the national plan. Local governments are now required to formulate and revise medium and long-term action plans with a view of 2030 in line with the Global Warming Prevention Plan. In March 2017, the Ministry of Environment Japan published the guideline for local governments to develop and implement local action plans to help them develop and revise the action plans and implement global warming countermeasures based on these plans. This action plan is divided into two main parts based on the type of emission sources. The first one is the action plan for reducing emissions from its administration, which is emission reduction plan of local governments' activities, including the local government facilities and projects. all local governments are obliged to formulate this plan under this act. There are over 430,000 public facilities in Japan, consisting of 100,000 in all prefectures and 330,000 in all municipalities. The introduction of renewable energy and energy-saving measures in these facilities could lead to a significant reduction in the amount of energy consumed throughout Japan. So it's extremely important that these measures are carried out systematically. The second one is action plan for reducing emissions within its jurisdictions, which are emissions from their jurisdiction, covering all the activities in their jurisdiction, including emissions in residential and business sectors. For this action plan, only the local governments at prefecture level and major municipalities are obliged to formulate. However, in order to achieve national net zero target, it is necessary to manage the emission in municipalities which are not obliged to formulate this plan, since the number of not obliged municipalities is much more than obliged municipalities. So that MOEJ, Ministry of Environment Japan, also supports those municipalities to formulate and implement the action plan for reducing emission in its jurisdiction by providing guidelines and tools, because they are minor cities and have limited resources. However, there are still many local governments facing difficulties in making and revising those action plans. This is a recent result of questionnaire survey on what kind of issues local governments are facing for making and revising action plan. Regarding action plan for reducing emissions from its administration, many local governments are facing the issue of insufficient staff to formulate revised plan and insufficient specialized know-how. That means there are insufficient human resources and capacities. And the financial issues of difficulty securing budget for measures to be included in plan follows. Regarding action plan for reducing emissions within its jurisdiction, this survey shows that it is more difficult for local governments to formulate and revise this than the action plan for reduction the emission from the administration. There are much more local governments facing the issue of their insufficient human resources and capacities. So Ministry of Environment Japan conducts that kind of survey annually and monitors what kind of issues they are facing on local climate action in order to provide appropriate support to them. In order to compensate for the shortage of staff and expertise and to help them implement steadily PDCA cycle, plan, do, check, act cycle in their own action plans, Ministry of Environment Japan basically provides those 4 types supporting measures to local government, such as support for know-how on methods, support for calculating GHGs, provision of examples from the organizations, and support for installation of facilities, divided into PDCA stages of the local action plan. Regarding support for know-how on methods and support for calculating GHGs, Ministry of Environment Japan holds explanatory sessions and prepares manuals and also provides tools for calculation of GHGs intended to be used by local government officers. All of these support measures are published on the MOEJ website. This is a support site for formulation and implementation of local government action plans. This website provides information on website so that local government officials can collect the outline of the action plan and legal basis, the status of formulation and implementation of the action plan, and the formulation manual and tools to support the calculation of regional greenhouse gases, as well as case studies of specific measures for each local government and information on subsidies. MOEJ also develops an information system to support local governments in compiling and recording data on GHG emissions. This information system has been operated since April 2019. The number of local governments participating in this system is increasing. It is expected for all local governments to participate and be linked to the MOEJ through the network of this system. Once the system is fully operational, all the CO2 emissions would be automatically calculated from electricity and gas consumption data collected from the connected local governments, and it could save a great deal of labor of local government staff. Although there are still many problems, such as regular personnel changes prevent the accumulation of capacity building among local government staff, the national government, including MOEJ, is providing wide range of support to the various levels of local governments for achieving their target of zero carbon cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Asaka, for your presentation. I think his key message was that while we emphasize the importance of finance and technology, it's also equally important to focus on human resources and their know-how to tackle the climate change impact. So we will move on to the final presentation for this session. Ms. Ki-young Park, Professor and Dean of Graduate School of Suncheon National University, will give us a presentation on carbon neutral and S&T agenda of South Korea. Please welcome Ms. Professor Ki-young Park.
Thank you very much for inviting me on these forums. Yeah. Now I want to talk about the carbon neutral and S&T agenda of South Korea. Yeah, here is the data of the carbon emission in Asia Pacific area. Oops. Yeah, right. Yeah, East Asia is a region with a large amount of carbon emissions. Also, is a very important region for achieving global carbon neutrality. In the end of last year, Korea has launched Green New Deal and committed to net zero greenhouse gas emissions in by 2050. Here. Also, this is the data of CO2 emissions in 2020. I want to focus on the particular carbon-intensive electricity generation in Asia-Pacific area. In Asia-Pacific area, is fuel-based carbon emissions predominantly stem from the burning coal in here in 89% there. Also, this is the data of CO2 emissions per GDP in Korea. Greenhouse gas emissions is of Korea is the 7th largest in the world. Also, our country of the greenhouse gas emission intensity of our country has been on continuously declined over the past 40 years. Also, CO2 emissions per capita it's shown here. CO2 emissions per capita of Korea increased a little bit, but there is a slight improvement increase rate in recent years in carbon emissions. But I want to show you the data for changes in greenhouse gases and in the climate change monitoring station in Korea. Usually we monitoring the carbon emissions in Anmyeon-do on the west coast of Korea. You can see the greenhouse gas emissions. Also CFC and other greenhouse gases have continuously decreased, but the emission of carbon dioxide is steadily increasing in red line here. Also, I want to pay attention about the methane emissions. The amount of methane emissions is constantly increasing here. Also, I want to further focusing on the CO2 emission intensity of electricity generation. Many of the largest electricity consuming countries have been able to achieving significant improvement in emission intensity during the past 2 decades, like Canada and China, also other countries. But Korea's carbon emissions has not improved significantly over the past 20 years due to, I think, industrial problems. This is to show you about the primary energy consumption. Korea is the 8th largest energy consuming country in the world. Oil occupies the largest portion, and the portion of coal use has recently a little bit decreased. But in these days, the share of renewable energy has recently increased significantly. The Korean government announced energy efficiency innovation strategy aiming to reduce 29.6 million TOE by 2030. This is the data about the electricity generation. In these forums, I want to focus on especially electricity generation. The energy that use fossil fuels in the red portion in 39.2%, such as coal and oil, amount for the highest portion in electricity generation. Also, our country has a large share of nuclear power in 25.9%, but this portion is recently a little bit decreased. Also, I want to focus especially on the new and renewable energy in Korea in 2019. The portion of new and renewable energy in Moon Jae-in government has continuously increased in recent years. With the fastest increase, the highest share of electricity generation in 2019 is solar power generation in red area. Also, I want to focus electricity consumption by sources. The sector with the highest portion of electricity use is the manufacturing sector, which has decreased a little bit after 2018, but this portion it has maintained about the 50% from I will show you from 2015 to 2019. Also, greenhouse gas emissions in manufacturing sectors and other areas, the field with the highest share of greenhouse gas emissions is manufacturing industry. In the blue, in the second one, recently, Korean Chamber of Commerce and Industry held a future forum to reduce carbon emissions and launched a control tower for carbon neutrality with the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy. Here, the trend of power sales by manufacturing, I already mentioned about this. Korea has a high portion of petrochemical and steel industry. In particular, the amount of electricity used in this area, this petrochemical industry and steel industry has increased significantly. The use of electricity in steel industry has recently a little bit decreased due to some innovation, process innovation. I want to focus in a little bit detail carbon emission intensity in manufacturing area. Despite some technological innovation in steel industry, I already mentioned about this, but basic metal has the highest share of greenhouse gas emissions in manufacturing industry, account about for 31.9%. The share of greenhouse gas emissions in petrochemical industry is second one, is 60.7. The share of greenhouse gas emissions in these two sectors account for almost half of manufacturing area for greenhouse gas emission. I want to introduce, also I want to analyze the RD&D expenditure in 2019 from IEA data. RD&D means research, development, and demonstration. In risk innovation in energy field, not only research and development is important, also in these days, the demonstration area is more important in this energy technology. Public spending in low carbon energy technology, RD&D, significantly increased 95% of total budget. In this data, the America has a large amount of budget in this area. Investment in energy RD&D has become progressively more diverse. Budget for energy efficiency in 21% and renewable energy in 15%, and cross-cutting RD&D in 22%, about the total here. But in particular, intensive investment has prominently in the United States. Also, budget for hydrogen and fuel cell increased to 4% in 2019. Also, cross-cutting RD&D grew in the first decade of 21st century. This is the data for energy RD&D investment in Korea. In Korea, low carbon energy RD&D investment in energy efficiency and is 25%. Also, renewable energy is 24%, 24.8%, and energy storage technology for battery or other things is 19.3 in 2019. Also, in these days, changes to enhance energy efficiency in each industry sectors, they realized very important in energy efficiency, which is expanded to begin now. However, aggressive investment in cross-cutting technology is insufficient. Also, which means that innovation is insufficient in carbon neutral sector. Our government proposed 5 basic directions for carbon neutrality in 2020 December. The President Moon Jae-in has announced a net zero target toward a carbon neutral by 2050. Green New Deal project will involve the government funding renewable electric vehicle manufacture and clean hydrogen productions. That's the 5 basic directions like here. Yesterday night, President Moon Jae-in announced more reduction in carbon emissions. First one, expanding the use of clean produced electricity and hydrogen. As in the industry sectors, we want to shift fossil fuel to electricity and hydrogen. Also, second one is the innovative energy efficiency improvement in connection with digital technology, like smart modulation, like that. Also, third one is promoting the development and commercialization future technology for decarbonization. We want to change the process in steel area to hydrogen reduction steel. So, first one is the promoting the sustainable industrial innovation through circular economy. Also, fifth one is the reinforcement of further carbon absorption functions of ecosystems such as forest, tidal, and wetland. I was conservation movement in Suncheon. I live in Suncheon City, Suncheon Bay wetland for about 30 years. I want to introduce some projects with Ali 100. In these days, recently, SK Group companies are first company from South Korea to become members of Global Ali 100 initiative. Also, I want to introduce the on-site green electricity, which is the last goal for carbon neutrality. Here you can see some company names. First one is the Apple, which has the 24% of on-site energy in from total electricity use. Also, I want to edit my proposal for carbon neutral technology innovation. We are meeting with Korea, China, and Japan. The transition to carbon neutrality will create sustainable future for us. This vision is already mentioned by Jung Ne-won. The transition to carbon neutral means creating new market and industry and business opportunity and creating new jobs. In the East Asia region, it has a large population and high portion of manufacturing industry and high industrial similarity and structure in which industries have grown in connection with each other. I think it's the reason why we are here. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions by switching from fossil fuels to clean electricity. Also, we have the manufacturing industry change it. Manufacturing industry must switch from using fossil fuels to low carbon alternative in petrochemical area. Enhancing energy efficiency is power generation, buildings, transportation, industrial process, and etc. In particular, carbon captures and trapped carbon utilization technology must be focused to achieve significant decarbonization in the industry sectors. smart technology to improve energy efficiency in all sectors. Also, reorganizing the legal systems for decarbonization and creating, we can consider about the East Asian Carbon S&T Fund. Also, I want to suggest some proposal. It is important to share the recognition that a joint effort to achieve neutrality is essential. Korea, China, and Japan ambitious collaboration on cross-cutting and advanced technology for carbon neutrality. Trilateral action has, as green leaders for the global green industrial revolution through COP, which is the UN climate conference to be held in Korea in 2023. Korea, China, Japan must demonstrate leadership and vision and actively take the aggressive effort to tackle climate change. I propose a joint RD&D innovation partnership for carbon neutrality in which the stakeholders of 3 countries participate. It is also proposed, I want to propose to declare the innovation goals and protocols for carbon neutrality at the COP28 meeting, similar to Paris Convention or Kyoto protocols. I think with this cooperation, the 3 countries can lead the transition to carbon neutrality. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Park, for your presentation and in-depth explanation, and also for your proposals on how we should achieve carbon neutrality through technology innovation, such as creating East Asian Carbon S&T Fund or joint RD&D innovation partnership. I'm now closing session 1 and moving straight ahead to session 2. In session 2, we will have presentations on policy agenda for carbon neutrality at the local government level. For the first presenter, Mr. Yusuke Mori, Director General for Policy Innovation Department at City of Tsukuba, will give us a presentation on how Tsukuba City is preparing its transition to a carbon neutral city. Director General Mori pre-recorded his presentation, so let's take a look at the video.
안녕하세요. 저는 머리 유스케라고 합니다. His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Chairperson of the National Council on Climate and Air Quality, Mr. Har Tae-jun, Mayor of Daejeon Metropolitan City, and honorable attendees. It is my great honor to give a talk at the Korea, China, Japan Local Government Conference on Regional Innovation toward our carbon neutral society. My name is Yusuke Mori. I'm in City of Tsukuba as a Director General for Policy Innovation Department. Today, I'll be talking about how Tsukuba City has been tackling with social problems to lead carbon neutral society as a science city. Let me introduce myself a bit. I started my career as a government officer at Education and Science Ministry of Japanese government in 2011. After 8 years I spent in the field of science and technology policy, I came to our municipality, the city of Tsukuba, 2 years ago. I put a nostalgic photo with His Excellency Ban Ki-moon when he and I were at John F. Kennedy School of Government of Harvard University in 2017. Okay, so Tsukuba City. Tsukuba City has continued to develop since Tsukuba Science City Construction Plan approved by Japanese cabinet in 1963. The city has a population of 245,000, and we see 3,500 increase every year, which is very rare in Japan, where severe aging and decline of population have been observed. 20,000 citizens engaged in research and development activities, and 8,000 are PhD holders, that is 10 times as dense as Japan's average. 10,000 are foreign nationals, making Tsukuba a highly diversified area. We are proud of 4 Nobel laureates in Tsukuba. Also, the city is a home to 150 research institutes. Location is very good, 45 minutes from Tokyo and 60 minutes from the international airport. Now, what is the mission of Tsukuba? We believe our mission is to contribute to humankind by improving people's lives through science and technology. Tsukuba City set the mission of a city with science and technology for citizens in Tsukuba Future Plan, which is city's top priority strategic plan. Let's move on to today's specific topic, which is how science city like Tsukuba can contribute to carbon neutral society. First, I will tell you two platforms where various stakeholders collaborate toward carbon neutral or zero emission. The first one is Tsukuba 3 Forum. It was formed in 2007 for open discussions amongst universities, research institutes, and municipalities, and aims to build our low-carbon society while harmonizing 3 E's, which are environment, energy, and economy. To achieve this goal, 3 task forces, Urban Structure and Transport Task Force, Biomass Task Force, and Next Generation Energy Task Force were formed with the participation of University of Tsukuba for research institutes like National Institute for Environmental Research and Ibaraki Prefecture and Tsukuba City. The second one is the Tokyo Zero Emission Innovation Base. It was established last year based on the environment innovation strategy of the Japanese government. The council aims to initiate an innovative area that pioneers technology-driven zero emission and to make the Tokyo Bay Area the world's first zero emission innovation area. This is an industry, academia, government collaborative initiative that consists of more than 100 organizations. The activities of the council include developing an area map of private enterprises, universities, national research institutes, and municipalities with information on their activities and sharing those with the other countries, as well as planning research and development, including proposing national projects to the government. Although not located in the Tokyo Bay Area directly, 7 organizations from Tsukuba are core members of the council, and National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology, whose main campus is located in Tsukuba, has led this initiative as the head. By cooperating with those platforms, Tsukuba City is trying to reduce greenhouse gas emission. CO2 emission in Tsukuba City in recent years have repeatedly gone up and down in the region of 2 million tons, which are expected to rise to 2.5 million tons if no effective action is taken. In order to avoid this future and to contribute to the global target, Tsukuba City set targets to reduce emission by 26% by 2030 compared to 2013. Again, Tsukuba City is expected to become a model low-carbon city by utilizing its advanced knowledge as a science city. In fact, the Japanese government selected Tsukuba City as a model environment city in 2013. It encouraged us to promote projects toward carbon-neutral society, which I will talk about in minutes. We further developed the public and private joint initiative, and in 2018, we were selected as SDG's Future City by the Japanese government. Cities with high potential to achieve sustainable development through the creation of new value in the economy, society, and environment led us to one of the first-tier cities on SDGs in Japan. Last year, we revised our global warming action plan, which was originally crafted in 2011, based on our previous and ongoing efforts as an environment model city and SDGs Future Plan, SDGs Future City. In this action plan, we set the vision of creating a low-carbon and resilient smart city with full citizen participation. Let's move on to more concrete projects. toward carbon neutral society. I'll show you some examples. In recent years, Tsukuba City has been undergoing development in the area along Tsukuba Express, which is an express line from Tokyo to Tsukuba, and a redevelopment in the area where there used to be the National Public Officers' Housing. Under these circumstances, it was imperative that we show effective low carbon solution and set forth and promote their guidelines for the development. Accordingly, we formulated Tsukuba City's own guidelines on new buildings and urban development. We recognize the housing districts and neighborhoods that meet the criteria of the guidelines as a model environment district so that we can promote low carbon community development. This area, called Smart Eco City Kenkyu Gakuen, Kenkyu Gakuen means science city in Japanese, by the way, are an example of the model environment districts. In the model environment districts, like Smart Eco City, houses are equipped with home energy management system and condominiums with building energy management system. In addition to the houses and condo, the whole districts are being developed as a low carbon community where there are solar panels along the pavement, as well as building schools that are environment friendly. Regarding the transport sector of Tsukuba City, it has a very high level of greenhouse gas emissions, especially from cars. To help promote the transition to low carbon vehicles, we subsidize the purchase of low carbon vehicles such as EVs and PHVs. Also, we promote electric on-demand self-driving bus and personal mobility for first 1 mile and last 1 mile for citizens, including elderly people and persons with disabilities, in order to encourage them to use public transportation rather than everyone uses their own cars. Additionally, we created hydrogen station very first time in Ibaraki Prefecture, and one of the Tsukuba City's official car is Mirai, which is hydrogen fuel cell car manufactured by Toyota. Furthermore, University of Tsukuba is taking a lead role in the initiative to achieve practical use of algae biomass, which is expected to be an alternative fuel to petrol, and so far started an experiment of algae mass culture and conducted a test run of a car that uses algae biodiesel blend. These projects have expanded to other parts in Japan. Lastly, I'd like to show you our latest cutting-edge project. University of Tsukuba, with the collaboration to Tsukuba City, recently got funded from Japanese Cabinet Office's Strategic Innovation Promotion Program, or SIP, to promote disaster management and infectious disease control utilizing a hydrogen fuel cell bus. It enables PCR tests. It enables us to do PCR tests even under severe situation of disaster, as well as supplying power at evacuation shelters. However, honestly speaking, considering current cost of hydrogen energy, it is hard to replace normal vehicle to hydrogen fuel cell system only for carbon neutral. However, by combining other purposes such as disaster management, hydrogen energy could be the first option. Currently, the Japanese government has been promoting super cities. It is like super version of smart city, under which technology is utilized, regulations are relaxed, and various data are connected. Tsukuba City is actively participating in this scheme, and we call our program Tsukuba Super Science City, provides new options by science, provide diverse well-being for citizens. In order to improve the quality of life for our citizens, Tsukuba City aims to create a community with a spirit of inclusiveness where no one is left behind. We aim to create a community where citizens are connected to each other and to the city, where people can make full use of their diverse capabilities, and where everyone can harness top-level scientific and technological knowledge in solving various issues in the community. We are planning to provide more than 20 services, as you see in blue square, from the field of government, mobility, delivery, medicine, welfare, safety, resilience, to infrastructure. Our attempt, the Super Science City, is for citizens, but at the same time, we believe it would surely contribute to carbon-neutral society by optimizing mobility, infrastructure, and energy management, and the digital transformation of government practices. We put all of accumulated knowledge as the best science city in Japan to realize Tsukuba Super Science City for public good. This conference reminded me of a very fun moment with colleagues from Korea and China a couple of years ago when I worked for Japan-Korea-China exchange program between high school teachers. I hope we could meet in person and deepen discussion in the near future. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Director General Yusuke Mori for the presentation. I think it was very interesting to see how the city of Tsukuba is using innovative technology and converging the different technologies to actually implement and apply in the everyday life of the citizens of the city. The next presenter is Ms. Yan Gui-Hwang, the Director and Professor of Ecology Institute at the Shandong Academy of Sciences, Center of Low Carbon Development and Carbon Trade Management of Shandong, presenting strategic plan of Shandong toward a carbon-neutral city. Please welcome Ms. Yan Gui-Hwang.
Okay, let me start. I found there is no Chinese English translator today, so I must speak English. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Professor Yan Gui-Hwang from Ecology Institute of Shandong Academy of Science. I'm glad. My title of report is Strategic Plan of Shandong toward a carbon neutral city. My report has three contents. First, the general introduction of Shandong. Second, the main experience and practice. The last is the next step of working ideas. Let's say first part. Shandong is a development province in eastern China, and the gross domestic product ranks third in China, and its energy consumption, coal consumption, and carbon dioxide emissions level rank all first in China. Shandong coal consumption is accounting 2/3 of the total energy consumption of Shandong. The total energy consumption of Shandong is large, and coal accounts for a high proportion. Is main reason for the large carbon emission. Shandong has completed industrial categories and the heavy industry. Shandong has obvious feature of high carbon. Shandong economic is such as the elephant economy. The second part is the main experience of practice of carbon emission reduction about Shandong. Provincial part commission and the government attend great importance to this work. It is proposed that the carbon dioxide emissions peak will be reached about 2023 year. Therefore, considering various factors, Shandong set different goals of the peak year in every regions, such as Qingdao and Yantai City will strive to achieve the peak goal about 2020. Jinan and Weifang City will strive to achieve the peak goal about 2025, and the other cities will achieve the peak about 2027, and as soon as possible. Shandong carry out many kinds of low carbon flight demonstration, such as low carbon cities, low carbon town, and low carbon industrial zone, and so on. And Shandong employed 5 action plans in several years, such as low carbon energy double, low carbon life, low carbon transport, low carbon building, and environmental protect industry. Shandong carbon dioxide reduction rate during the 13 5-year plan period is 2.5%, but by 2019, carbon intensity has been reduced by 22.7% compared with 2015, exceeding the annual accumulated target. The third part is the next step work ideas. Take multiple measures to promote carbon emissions reduction in Shandong and achieve carbon peak and carbon neutral targets as early as possible. Specific include administration means, technical means, market means, and capacity building, and in simple mechanism, forcing mechanism, and regulator mechanism, and so on. A double carbon action plan as soon as possible. Explain the path of low carbon and zero carbon translation. Calculate the building of a carbon trading market and increase the stress of scientific and technology support. Intensity departmental cooperation and form joint workforce. Next, from to part, carry out works from supply side and consumption side. Let's first say supply side, include following parts: improve quality and carry out source reduction, make full use of residual heat and pressure, and expand the sale of non-core substitution. increase the sale of new and renewable energy. Consumption side is in improvement acute statistics and strength energy saving and promote high quality development, control the sale of energies in industries, development industry with low carbon and energy consumption. In addition, promote foreign translation of industrial and insist the low carbon development and achieve our zero carbon goal. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yan, for the presentation. We are a little bit behind our schedule, so we will move on to our final presentation for session 2. Mr. Young-Ju Ko, President of Daejeon Institute of Science and Technology for Enterprise and People, will present strategic plan of Daejeon toward a carbon neutral city. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Young-Ju Ko.
Okay, this is my just background. This is the table of contents I'm gonna talk. This is Daejeon's strategy for carbon neutral city and climate technologies in Daejeon, and next actions which results in regional innovation. And lastly, suggestions for future collaboration between China, Japan, and Korea. I'll begin with the Daejeon's strategy for a carbon neutral city. Actually, Daejeon is located in the center of South Korea. The number of people is around 1.50 million, but actually more than 1.70 million people, including visitors, travelers, and workers living outside the Daejeon. So there are a compact city with many people. So the source of greenhouse gases emission is from the building and transportation. So we need target to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from especially building and mobility. But another issue is the energy. Daejeon City just use the small portion of renewable energy, heavily depending on these kinds of oil and coal power. So Daejeon City is trying to focus on those three areas to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in city area. So, of course, Daejeon City had made a lot of efforts to reduce greenhouse gases, especially since the Paris Agreement in 2015, but not enough. So Daejeon City announced another special plan to reduce greenhouse gases emissions toward carbon neutral city, especially aiming those three targets: building, mobility, and energy. But another important area is to make more participation of citizens to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, changing their consumption types or social development. So we need focus on those three areas to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also citizens' participation. And another area is the city forest. Those 3 or 4 areas is to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, but we need to get the greenhouse gas in the air through these kinds of a lot of forest. So Daejeon City is trying to focus on those 5 areas, so-called 4+1 strategy. It's making action agendas. You can see there are 14 action agendas on those 5 focusing areas. Among those 4+1 strategy and strategic areas, there are 3 main strategies of Daejeon City. The one is to establish more and more forests, reaching up to 1,000 city forests. So rebuilding Daejeon into forest city from the industrial or consumption or a lot of apartment and buildings. So as you can see, there are so many small areas of forests, rebuilding many places. Another main strategy area is to supply green mobility. Daejeon tried to change all buses and taxis into eco cars to 2050. And 20,000 bicycles more. And also importantly, city trams and intellectual transportation system. The president, Kim Jae-chol, is here, is responsible for building those kinds of tram cities. Okay. Last main strategy is to expand more supplying renewable energy power. So Daejeon City is to develop more solar energy through technological development or more and more mini solar energy and better fuel cell, etc. I think such kinds of efforts could make Daejeon City the future leading city for renewable energy development. Okay, let's move on to look at climate technologies in Daejeon. Daejeon is the largest city of science, technology, and innovation. So there are so many, actually all kinds of technologies in Daejeon City, with many government-funded research institutes and KAIST, and many universities and many companies. So I'd like to introduce some of them, some of technologies. First category is the carbon resource upcycling technologies. So there are a lot of byproducts such as carbon monoxide and methane from chemical plants or oil manufacturing companies. So we try to purify the CO and CH4, and using catalyst, metal or solid acid catalyst, we could convert the byproducts to chemical materials or fuel. So another area is the conversion technology from carbon dioxide into chemical materials and fuel or liquid fuel through the bioconversion or chemical conversion, hydrogen conversion, or electrochemical conversion technologies, and the artificial photosynthesis technologies. All of those kinds of conversion technologies are being developed here in Daejeon City. And also CO2 mineralization technology, we could use CO2 is actually waste, but change into the materials through those kinds of mineralization technology. Okay. And Daejeon City also has those kinds of biochemical processing technologies from the source of biomass. Using those kinds of biochemical processing, we could produce alternative fuel and petrochemical materials without using oil and gases and coals. And we have also such kinds of solar cell or fuel cell technologies. And importantly, we have those technologies such as energy infrastructure or conversion and efficiency technologies by Korea Institute of Materials, Machines and Materials. We are holding a conference here. So low carbon and clean energy infrastructure technology or energy efficiency technologies. So energy conversion and electrification technology. Those are government-funded research institutes and KAIST doing researches to develop the climate technologies for industry and cities. So we could use those technologies to change our cities into carbon neutral city. Okay, it's very important, our capability for the future. Okay, I'd like to say briefly additional actions which result in regional innovation. It is very important. Dr. Jung Nae-gon mentioned we should change our conventional knowledge and economic development way and the social development we develop together. So we change those kinds of system or conventional knowledge into the protection, environmental protection, or new green economic development and the social transition all together. So our regional innovation pursues those kinds of co-transition process with these kinds of actions. The first is to establish the innovation ecosystem, the fostering innovative ventures and startups. We try to support many kinds of startups and innovative companies, but nowadays we should support more to establish new startups and innovative companies using the climate change technologies for towards carbon neutral city. Additionally, changing our knowledge and the social system and everything. So those kinds of startups or innovative companies ecosystem could change or could contribute to our efforts for a future carbon neutral city. So we need to foster the green innovation companies, so free zones using green technologies, etc. So another important area is to think about and establish the circular economy, city-based. So we try to decouple using the resources of oil and gases and power, something like that, into renewable energy and other kinds of resources. But another important point is to reuse our products or services we already used. So recycle the system without producing more waste. So, more circulation of raw materials and the establishment base for sustainable products or advancement or recycling systems. And also strengthen carbon neutrality measures, something like that. This is also important. The eco-friendly or low-carbon and self-reliance city is very important for all kinds of major cities for the future. So we need to try to engage more citizens and companies and local governments using the digital technologies and also commercially available recycling products, supporting those kinds of products or circular economy system infrastructure. Okay, these kinds of IT-based digital startups are increasing in Daejeon City. So many companies are using big data and the digital technologies to produce the renewable products or new kinds of development system for carbon neutral city in the future. And another important point is to think about the combination or integration of the more convergence technologies and advanced technologies or art and design for the newly developed products and recycled products. People usually think about the recycled products is low quality. This is a conventional knowledge. But in order to use more and more such kinds of recycled products by citizens, we need to get more qualified products with more advanced technologies, integrating many technologies, and art and design as well. So people could attractively buy such kinds of recycled product, even with low cost. So we need to develop these kinds of upcycling products and services with more technologies. And also another point is to increase different kinds of educational and learning system in the city. People usually think about with more conventional education to get knowledge, to take an exam, to more better position or get a job, without reducing greenhouse gases or any kinds of efforts to reduce greenhouse gases in the city. But those kinds of conventional knowledge or social system is any more sustainable. So we need to develop how to learn or change our conventional knowledge into new knowledge. We could be possible for ourselves to develop the different kinds of social systems and different cities with different kinds of buildings and transportation systems and energy sources with the citizen participation. So how to learn or how to exchange different kinds of experiences, knowledge each other with these kinds of new educational system in the city area, and also cooperation with other other areas and regions. Okay, I will complete my presentation with suggestions for future collaboration between Shandong and Tsukuba and Daejeon City. Of course, additionally, between countries together. We need to think about the collaboration project together or regular meetings to discuss or share our experience or best practice and the citizens' living labs. There are a lot of increasing efforts to change our social system through living labs led by citizens with more advanced technologies, changing our cities. So we could make international collaboration programs led by citizens through those kinds of living lab programs, and also joint educations, collaborative policy studies as well, because it's a long-term shifting process from these kinds of greenhouse gas emission economy and society into carbon neutral society. We need to develop more our ways of transition process. So we need to policy studies as well. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, President Ko, for your presentation. As a former citizen of Daejeon, I was very proud to see how Daejeon is accelerating its transition to become a carbon neutral city. This concludes the presentations of session 2. Thank you all the presenters for the informative presentations, and I hope this session was valuable and fruitful to all the audiences participating online and offline. We will take a 1-minute break to prepare the panel discussion session. Thank you. Okay. I would like to thank all the audiences participating in this conference online or offline for staying with us. We will start our third and last session of this conference, which will be held as a panel discussion on Korea, China, Japan trilateral agenda for regional government carbon neutral cooperation. Mr. Lee Kwon-jung, Council Member of National Council on Climate and Air Quality, will lead this discussion session as the chairperson. Council Member Mr. Chung, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to chair the final concluding session for Korea, China, and Japan, 3 regional local government cooperation for carbon neutrality. And I'd like to begin by introducing a little bit of the background of this conference. The Korean government has established 2 years ago a National Council on Climate and Air Quality, headed by former UN Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to come up with some kind of a nationwide measures to reduce the particulate matter issues, the air pollution issues, especially getting very worse, especially during the springtime, when the yellow sand dust coming from the central continent of Asia towards the Korean Peninsula, and also the air pollution issue. So the NCCA, the National Council on Climate and Air Quality, has been established 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, April 2019. And since then, we have been trying to promote collaboration with China as well as neighboring countries, including Japan and other neighboring countries. And as one of the global initiative of NCCA, we have proposed at the UN General Assembly in 2019, September, to designate an International Day for Blue Sky, which was accepted and approved by UN General Assembly in 2019, December. Since then, we have designated the 7th of September as a day for blue sky to be commemorated, to give emphasis on the urgent need to improve our air quality and restore our blue sky, come back to our society. So this has been one of the flagship initiative of NCCA at the global level. And then NCCA has hosted an international forum in November in 2019. And at that time, we invited foreign dignitaries from around the neighboring countries in Asia and Pacific. At that time, very luckily, we had the participation of Minister Li Ganji as a Minister of Environment and Ecology of China, joined our international forum together with Mr. Ban Ki-moon. And now I heard that it is a very pleasant surprise that former Minister Li Ganji now moved to Shandong province as a governor of Shandong province. And it is my great pleasure to know that the former minister, is now the governor of Shandong province, and we have now the participation from Shandong province. This is, I think, very fortunate for us to have some kind of expectation for future collaboration. And so this was, at that time, some of the representative of the neighboring countries also attended our international forum for NCCA in November in 2019, and also September in last year, 2020, because of the COVID-19 issue. At that time, it was not offsite, face-to-face actual meeting, but it was an online meeting at the time last year. But also we had the participation of many local government representatives, and we have agreed that in those two international forums to promote the sharing of best practices among the local government. That has been the background why today the Daejeon city initiated to organize this particular conference together with this step where Mr. Go is a chair, president, and also KIMM, the Korea Institute for Machine, KIMM is also joining to co-host this local government collaboration for carbon neutrality conference. So this has been a little bit of background. So what I'm saying is that the foundation for collaboration among the local government and the local entities has been already laid out 2 years ago. So the foundation is already there. And today we had an opportunity to hear from the experts and representatives of National Institute as well as local governments from China and Japan. And especially I would like to express my special welcome to Director General Mr. Xu, who we have been known for a long time. Nice to meet you, Mr. Director General Xu. It's a very good pleasure to meet you again. Hope to see you soon again in climate change conferences. We have been working together for many years for climate negotiations. It is my special pleasure. And I also have been working with many colleagues in IGS, and I have been visiting IGS many times, and I've been good relations with the president of IGS and all the other colleagues. So it is my special pleasure to have to chair this panel. And as we already heard, good efforts by the central government of China and also local government of China and Japan, what they are doing, what they are trying to do for our carbon neutrality, which is our common goal. And today, as a concluding session, I would like to just hear a little bit of detailed, concrete examples from our experts from China and Japan especially, to share some of the best practices that they would like to highlight to be shared among the local governments. For example, I have two very important initiatives of China that should be replicated in many other countries. For example, China has already replaced all the not all the bicycles, but already bicycles are replaced by electric scooter. So in Korea, we are still using the motorbikes with the kerosene and the diesels, which is polluting. But in China, all these polluting and dirty smelling scooters are gone, and they have already completely replaced it with the electric scooter. So in China, there's no pollution from scooter. Scooter is one of the most very effective, efficient, and economical, and very cheap replacement for the transportation CO2 emission. So I think this is a very good example from China that Korea has to learn. We don't have electric scooter in Korea, unfortunately. I don't know why. I don't think it is not a technical issue. We have technology, but I don't know why. But another very good example from China is a super grid technology from China. I know very well that from Urumqi, from Xinjiang province, there is a very high voltage, 1.1 million voltage power grid connecting from Urumqi to Anhui near Shanghai. They are sending huge megavolt, gigavolt of electricity, renewable energy from Xinjiang province to the consumption load centers in Shanghai, around Shanghai. I think it can be also connected to Shandong province. So I think this is one of the very good initiative of China that many countries can learn how to transmit renewable energy from far corners of the world into the consumption centers like big cities. So this is a very impressive initiative of China, which I always try thinking that many countries should learn from it, and especially from Japan. Japan has been pushing for the public transportation for so long. And in Tokyo, I'm always saying, whenever I make a presentation as a UN director in the UNESCO, I have been emphasizing that many countries in Korea as well as in Southeast Asia, we should learn from China about public transportation system. In Tokyo, all the people in Tokyo go to their work, their company in the morning, not by driving car. They all go by public transportation. Nobody is driving private car in Tokyo to go to their offices. But in Seoul, still so many people are driving private car to go to their offices. This is terrible. And also in Daejeon, I heard from President Ko that a lot of the CO2 emission is coming from transportation in Daejeon, which is a relatively small city. I don't know why, because there's no reason that the people in Daejeon can use public transportation rather than driving a private car. This is a relatively small city. We can very easily cover it with the public transportation. I always see that this kind of public transportation system in Japan is really a modern miracle that so many people are not driving. And Japan is suffering the minimum traffic congestion. I checked the statistics already, many times already. Japan suffering the lowest traffic congestion in the world. Korea suffering huge traffic congestion. Not only Korea, many developing countries, Malaysia, Thailand, wherever you go, Jakarta, all these developing country cities are suffering huge traffic congestion and air pollution. So it is not only killing the earth, but it's also killing the people. So these are some of the best practices I've been always thinking that we should learn each other. So there are many interesting best practices we can learn each other. So I'd like to stop talking too much about myself, and I'd like to invite especially our foreign experts from China and Japan that what can you specify, for example, at the national level and the local level, one of the best example or best practice you think that the other country can replicate or learn, if there's any. Would you say one of those examples from your country and or local government? Who would like to start? Mr. Kenji Asakawa-san, would you like to start the one? What would be the best, one of the best pick for yourself from Japan to showcase to other countries? Yeah, Mr. Asakawa-san.
And yes, regarding good practices, of course, Korea has lots of things for Japan to learn, and yeah, so yeah, actually we conducted a comparison study among 3 countries: China, Japan, Korea, the last 3 years, and we found Korea has a very advanced portal site for climate change and for citizens. But we think the government of Japan developed a portal site for local governments to support their local action plan, and that is a big difference. So the government of Japan should develop our website for citizens to disseminate the issue of global warming. Yes, and one of the good practices in Japan, say, for example, teleworking is now disseminating in Japan and for COVID-19 issues, and that teleworking lifestyle is the traffic congestion, of course, and then now train company now reducing their operation and to save the operation, and that's one of the energy saving effort from Japan. And of course, teleworking lifestyle can reduce the traffic on the road, of course, and then yeah, and it can increase the quality of our life. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Asakawa-san. Yeah. Okay. Maybe how about Director General Xu Huaqing? Can you highlight one best practice that you are very proud from China to share with other countries like Korea and Japan? What specific example can you highlight? Is there any highlight, something you can highlight as a success story from China?
Okay, thank you very much. I fully support your point. In China, at this moment, it's very important how to synergize air pollution prevention and carbon reductions is a major challenge for us. So, under the Minister of Ecological and Environment, we put very important positions to deal with both issues. And other things I would like to point out at this moment, it is the situation is very excitedly at this moment. The first one, our President Xi Jinping pay more attention on how to achieve the carbon peaking and carbon neutral. It's never seen in these areas. So that's the first thing. The second one is the social and governance and every people's at this moment. They involved attention how to make a contribution to achieve our carbon peak and carbon neutral. This means that the social society, everything, everyone to involve these actions. The third one, also you mentioned that challenges and opportunities also is very big and to achieve this target. So why I say something about our central government, our CPC, and our 14th National Economic and Social Development. So it's we want to ask, to require all peoples, all companies to involve these actions. So it's very important, as also very useful experience in China. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director General Xu. I think, yes, China has a very strong leadership, and once the goal is set by the president, then I think the business and the people and the local government are very good at complying with the directions from the leadership. I think this is one of the very strong advantage of Japanese, Chinese case, and I think that is a real issue in many democratic or democratized societies. In Korea, actually, we have some difficulty of engaging the business and the people for their participation, because people are sometimes argue that it is a burden and cost for my business and for my own self-interest. So people are still trying to drive their private car. They don't, even though they are worried about climate change, but they don't give up driving the private car because it's more comfortable and things like this. But I think from China, I am always impressed by the Chinese investment, huge investment in renewable energy. Already, China is leading. I think almost 30% of investment for renewable energy is coming from China. And also, half of the electric car in the world is driven in China. So China is actually spearheading in the transformation for renewable energy investment and also the mobility, electric mobility. I think China is the largest market for electric car. So I think these are the very good examples from China to be shared by many other countries. And maybe can I invite the Director General, Professor Yan? Professor Yan, can I invite you? I know that the Shandong province has also many companies and industries, and you are also having a serious challenge of reaching carbon neutrality because of the big proportion of the heavy industry in Shandong province. So I think you are also having a big challenge. But can you pick just one good example you can showcase to other countries or other governments? What would be the most successful story from Shandong province?
Okay, let me think. I think Shandong provincial party committees and government pay pay high attention to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and reduce employment, energy, and low carbon trends, and specific reduce coal and increase new energy and renewable energy double. As a result, Shandong coal percent in total energy consumption is from 33% to
okay, then maybe while we are fixing the problem, technical problems, maybe can I switch to Director General Yusuke Mori-san from Tsukuba City? Can you highlight one best practice or success story you'd like to showcase?
Yes. Thank you for inviting. Do you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for again inviting me to the very nice conference today. And so Tsukuba City, as many of you mentioned already, I think the involvement of citizens is the key to for us to achieve the goal to reduce the carbon emission. And so to do so, we created the partnership inside the city called Tsukuba SDGs Partners. And it consists of the 76 organizations, as well as the more than 300 individuals who already committed to incorporate the notion or concepts of carbon the neutral to their the daily life. And through those kinds of the partnership, so we provide the opportunity to learn the continuous education about the cutting edge the research and development in the environment and energy for those who participated in the partnership. And also we provide it's a tiny amount of money, but provide subsidies to the citizen group to complete their project, which identifies the problem in the city in a climate change or the energy or carbon neutral. And also that they aim to do the small kinds of the project to achieve to solve the problem which they have or they had identified. So through such action, the involvement of citizens is, I think, the most successful project we achieved in Tsukuba. Of course, you know, there are many national institutes who are tackling with the climate change, but in terms of the role of local government, I think that we have succeeded to provide such opportunity to citizens. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it is very impressive because I think engaging citizens for climate action is always not that easy in many other places. And so I think we should learn from your success stories, I think in more details later. Okay, Professor Yan, we lost you because of technical problems. Now you can continue your presentation. Okay, Professor Yan, yeah. Sorry for the technical difficulty, yeah.
Okay, I think Shandong government pay attention to the reduced carbon dioxide emission. Shandong coal is the decline of wells from near several years. Proportion from 76% 2015 years to now proportion is about 66%. And at the same time, new energy and renewable energy proportion is increase obviously, and economy quality is increasing, and for new economy sale is 30% in gross domestic product. So I think government teaching is very important. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Professor Yan. Okay. So because of the lateness of time, I think we are a little bit behind schedule. So now I'd like to briefly invite Professor Park, whether you can showcase one of the best practices from the local Suncheon City or Jeonnam Province.
Yeah, I want to share my experience with several peoples. I made several advices to the mayor of Suncheon City and the governor of Jeonnam Province. Suncheon City and Jeonnam Province has the highest increases in renewable energy with solar facility. Because I made some movement with eco-friendly citizens. We made some plans for the solar energy and other renewable energy programs. Also, I was originally designed the 2030 energy programs, which is the 20 renewable energy in until 2030 in 2020 when the President Moon Jae-in was failed in presidential election. That's why I was involved in this project. But I think we have to spread out the conservation object from the land island to land area to the sea area, sea ecosystem. In the Jeonnam Province, I advised to the governor of Jeonnam Province with the blue economy. Also, green economy said Dr. Dr. Jung was already mentioned about the green economy, but now we wanted to focus on the blue economy with the sea area, because because carbon dioxide is melting into the sea area, which that's why we have to focus on the sea area like there. So I lived in the southern part of Korea, which is close to the sea. That's why I made some blue economy from green economy. Yeah, it's my success story.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Professor Park. And I would like to invite President Ko from the step. Can you showcase very briefly about the success story from Daejeon?
Right. A lot of efforts of Daejeon City. Daejeon is still beginning stage toward carbon neutral city. I think we have to learn more from Sandung and Tsukuba City's successful practice. But there is one thing I'd like to say is that the Daejeon City has the highest level of community participation to change their living places and city, especially connecting more technologies and experts from the DEDOC R&D Innopolis, which I mentioned already. So I think that point is very important to make our city carbon neutrality. So Daejeon City is trying to make those a lot of efforts for the last couple of years into more systemic or strategic way to connect communities and technologies and experts together towards the carbon neutral city. So I hope to say later in more details our successful cases by those kinds of community-based Living Net project. Daejeon is actually origin of Living Net project in Korea. So I hope to see some discussions more in later. And Daejeon City is trying to develop more efforts in a systematic and strategic way to show more best practice with the other cities. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, President Go. I think Daejeon and the Tsukuba City is sharing a very interesting common denominator, which is that it's a center of science and technology and R&D. And so I think Daejeon can take advantage of the technical capacity which the city enjoys because of so many R&D research institute here. So maybe later I think Daejeon can learn a lot more practices from Tsukuba City as well, and then show us later and sharing with all of us. So since now we are approaching the conclusion of our conference, I would like to conclude by saying that there are still a lot more to learn among ourselves. Carbon neutrality is a huge challenge because it is a fundamental transformation of not only just energy, but transformation of our economy, our market, our technology, our society. So it's not just, as I said earlier in my presentation, it's not just a matter of rising temperature. It's a matter of fundamentally transforming our market economy towards a carbon economy. I'm always saying the carbon economics, which means that a market economy that pays the price of carbon. At the moment, our market economy is not paying the price of carbon. We are making our production and we are trying to maximize the quantity of our GDP without paying the price of carbon. And it has been actually encouraged to do so by the market principle for minimum cost. And in the name of industrial competitiveness, we have been using the cheapest energy, and also we are paying the minimum wages for our people. But we have to transform such a market economy system towards a more inclusive and sustainable and green and climate resilient economic system. So it's actually economic system transformation issue, not just the energy transformation issue. When we are looking at only energy, I don't think we can succeed in reaching carbon neutrality. But we have to look at the policies like tax and the fiscal policy, Green New Deal. This is why the Green New Deal came out, because it is a fiscal policy and the carbon tax This is another issue. So I think during this conference, we didn't have chance to discuss this kind of issues, but sooner or later, I think as the government and the local entities are pushing for carbon neutrality, then later on, I think we have to face the real challenge, which is actually the price of carbon. I think price carbon is the real name of the game. I don't think it's not just a name. The renewable energy is not the real focus of carbon neutrality. The real focus is a carbon price that we have to pay for it. Then I think we can move on to renewable energy transformation. So this is why the challenge is so fundamental and challenging and daunting. So with this kind of background, I would like to emphasize as a concluding remark that we have to share our best practices because it's a long way to go. There is a saying that if we want to go fast, then you go alone. But if you go a long way, then you have to go with your friend. So carbon neutrality is a long way to go. We cannot go alone. And even though one person or one country or one city become carbon neutral, that would be meaningless if our friends are not carbon neutral. So it is a task. We have to go together long way, long distance. So this is why we have to work together as a friend, and we have to share our best practices and encourage each other and learn from each other. So I think this conference has been one of the follow-up action from the agreement at the International Forum held by the NCCA 2 years ago and also last year. We repeatedly agreed to share our best practices even among the local governments. So this is one of the events that was following up the agreement which was reached already some years ago between Mr. Ban Ki-moon and Mr. Lee Gan-jae and also many other higher-level dignitaries. So I very much look forward to that we can continue this kind of exchanges and the consultations to encourage each other, and learn from each other, and work together to achieve carbon neutrality, which is a long journey, but a journey we cannot avoid. We have to go there because if we fail, there's no another Earth. Because if we are losing this Earth, there's no other plan B. Because failure is not something we can afford. We cannot afford to fail. So we have to succeed. So this is why we have to work together and we have to go a long way together. And I'm very much looking forward to continue this kind of consultations among ourselves to share our best practices. Thank you very much for your attention and participation. Thank you.